Prospects of my candidacy is more likely now than it was in '64 because I am finding that there are more people supporting the position that the people of Alabama have been taking than they did in 1964. In fact, we have a better chance to be elected this time than in 1964. And if I decide to run, provided these two parties continue on their Me Tooism road to socialism, then in my judgment, I will win. When I say I will win, that people in this country will win who believe that we should check these trends and bring to a screeching halt some of the complete destruction of individual liberties and freedoms in our country and the destruction of local government and the attacks upon the property ownership system and the free enterprise system which we see taking effect every day.
I think it's probably fair to say that some of these trends that you are talking about have been checked somewhat. We've seen a reversal in the civil rights trends in this country. We've seen the Congress chide HEW for the way it's been enforcing its guidelines. If this continues, then would you not run?
Well, it's going to take more than a slow up and a checking. It's going to have to be a complete halt. Bills that I have signed into law, passed by the special session of the legislature of our state, has provided an increase of 100% to public education during the last 3.5 years. And I want to congratulate those in public education in our state, the legislature of Alabama, and the people of our state who have supported this enhanced educational program for our children. We're eminently proud of this new program that will benefit all the young people of our state beginning in September. The appropriation of approximately $44 million surplus in our educational trust fund still will leave the educational trust fund by the end of the coming fiscal year with approximately $40 million more surplus. This, of course, in time will be used also for the children of Alabama.
As far as I've been able to learn, for the first time, these bills passed both House and Senate unanimously. There was unanimous support behind them. And to Governor Wallace for his excellent leadership over the last 3.5 years, we're deeply grateful. We are now in a position in higher education to compete with all of our neighbors and those in the southern region so far as salaries, new positions are concerned. And we know that this is just the beginning of an advance both in education and in all aspects of economic life for the state of Alabama.
The site preparation bill that has helped us to get so far about $200 million of new industry in Alabama. The increase in unemployment compensation, which puts us in good shape with the rest of the states, that is for those who are unemployed, although we have very little unemployment at the time in our state. And then, of course, we increased the support to those who are in the mental hospitals in our state, increased aid to the tubercular people and the crippled and the blind, and we also have a fine increase for the career workers with the state of Alabama. And, well, that's about it, although there were several other pieces of legislation that I cannot recall at the moment, but that's about most of it.
Well, can we mention now the special session? Can we talk about it at this time?
Well, of course, I have no plans at the time for a special session. I had hoped that we would get a reapportionment bill through the legislature, but it got through the House, but did not get through the Senate. And I regret that, of course. Let me say,
I have this day as governor take the following action. First, we've employed attorneys to file suit in Birmingham, Alabama to test the constitutionality of the voter rights bill. We've employed attorneys in Montgomery, Alabama to vigorously defend the suit which attempts to abolish the poll tax. We have employed attorneys to petition the federal courts to stop or limit demonstrations in the cities and towns of our state. The voter rights bill is punitive, unreasonable, and destructive of constitutionally guaranteed freedoms. It is as bitter as anything enacted by the Reconstruction Congress. An illiterate can now be registered in Alabama, although that same illiterate cannot be registered to vote in the state of New York. The armed services of our country will not accept an individual unless he can read and write. I say if a person is literate enough to vote, he is literate enough to fight for our country. With regard to the demonstration suit, during February and March of this year, the number of state troopers stationed in Selma, Marion, and Montgomery to maintain peace and order ranged from 25 to 150, the latter figure representing more than one-third of the entire strength of the Department of Public Safety. The necessity of taking troopers off the highways to preserve the peace in local areas resulted directly and indirectly in an increase of 221 accidents, 33 injuries, and 19 deaths in February and March over and above the number in the same period of 1964. These lawless demonstrations are calculated to immobilize local police forces, and this has resulted in a staggering loss of lives and personal injuries on our highways. In the interest of the public safety and welfare, our attorneys are preparing to file suit in the federal district court. We're going to ask the court to enjoin or limit all demonstrations in Alabama.
These systems have already been ordered to show cause why freedom of choice should not be abandoned in the 19 systems. The show cause order requires them to do that in writing by November 18, not with a hearing, but simply in writing. Now, apparently, in order to coerce and intimidate these same 19 systems, the court has come through with another show cause order on its own motion, that is, on no one's complaint, why the injunction should not be dissolved so that the federal funds which those systems receive can be cut off. It appears to me, and I think to any reasonable person, that the court is simply using this method to hold another hammer over the heads of these 19 systems, to try to force them to do something. Frankly, at this point, I know not what. But it's a form to me of Russian roulette that the court's playing with the school children of Alabama.
If you ran in 1972, which party do you feel like you would hurt the worst?
Well, I think if I ran in 1972, I would probably hurt the Democratic Party the worst, as I did in '68. But if I ran again, I think we'd probably this time hurt both parties equally. But I haven't said I was going to be a candidate, and I'm not being coy about it. I just haven't decided whether it's a thing to do, whether it would be effective, whether it would serve the interest of Alabama, and whether the people of Alabama want it. If I decide all those factors in favor of a candidacy, I would run, because in the final analysis, the people of this state, the average man, is going to decide what I'm going to do in that regard.
Now, since we have made this survey, Dr. Leroy Brown and the state of Alabama will file a suit this summer or in the near future asking that some of these schools be reopened for the simple purpose, on a non-discriminatory basis, on the freedom of choice, that any child can go any place they want to go. But we're going into court, and we've got the evidence from the superintendent and from thousands of parents in this state that know that they are suffering great inconvenience about even having to get up at 4:30 in the morning. They get a child off without breakfast. It's a silly and most asinine thing that ever happened to any state or to any people. The House of Representatives has, that would ask them to reconsider their bid to require in the future that all rate increases be based on the utilities and dams and so forth. We're going to have a balanced general fund submitted to you by the governor's office. We're going to present to you a strong air and water pollution bill, a reasonable bill, but it must be strong, because that problem faces us in Alabama as it does in other states. We shall continue the efforts we made in the past toward industrial development. And no administration has ever seen any more industrial development than was seen in my first one and will be seen in this one. Because at least when I go and visit in other parts of the country, they do know who your governor is, and I don't want to be immodest when I say that. They do know who I am. We're going to use the trade school program, as we've already talked about, to train people for industry itself, because the textile industry, because of foreign competition, we must work to help replace jobs of those lost in this particular field. I shall ask this legislature to take the tax off of prescription drugs to help the elderly, especially in this state, as I said I would as a candidate. We want to provide raises for old age pensions, for the blind, and for the handicapped. That in itself is another humanitarian purpose of this legislature and of my administration. I want to tell you about insurance rates. They are too high. Hospital insurance rates are too high. Liability insurance is too high. We are going to present a program to the legislature already worked up by a group of companies who do business in this state from within and from without, headed by such eminent men as Frank Sanford Jr. and others, a program for the near poor, that they can have a medical hospital program if they don't come under Medicaid or Medicare, that will make it possible with their low income to have the same sort of protection hospital-wise as does a citizen with more money. That will be presented to you a little bit later. There is, when you have group insurance with some company, education is still the primary function of state government. And I believe under existing revenues we can have a teacher salary increase, a better free textbook program, a better retirement program, which has already been introduced, and other legislation along this line will be introduced, because I am proud of the fact that during the time that I was governor the first time, the breakthrough in education came. The largest increases at any time because of our interest. But I'm frank to tell you and to tell educators that the people of Alabama simply turned off on education and some educators because of what the federal courts and HEW have done to their children from Huntsville to Mobile. And every one of you know I'm telling you the truth when I tell you that. Did you know that in Alabama, I asked Dr. Leroy Brown to make a survey for me of schools that have been arbitrarily closed by court order. And did you know that the schools that have been closed in this state that most superintendents reported had brought about overcrowding, busing, inconvenience, danger to the children going long distances across cities and towns, that they closed $22,523,000 worth of school buildings, closed them down shut, tight, and now they're having children to go to schools in gymnasiums, to go to schools in the hall, to go to school outside, and we have $22 million. That was the insurance estimate. It would take $50 million to replace those buildings. The estimated additional transportation cost of busing little children backwards and forwards across every city and county is $365,000. The total $22,888,000, and the estimated cost of additional facilities when they closed the school down over here, it cost $1 million, and transported the children over here, it now takes another $1 million over here to accommodate what they brought from this side of town. That's estimated by the Department of Insurance, Department of Education, as $20 million. So a total of $42 million, counting the insurance estimate, which really is closer to $60 million, is what has happened to that many schools. And it is against the interest of every black and white child. And I won't, for the benefit of any press, even if it's the Atlanta Constitution's here tonight, or the Los Angeles Times, and they're everywhere, and they're here, to let them know that we've always believed in non-discrimination. We've always believed in doing good for everybody regardless of their race or color in this state. And that will be the same policy of this administration as it has been in the past. Yes, I want to mention the Supreme Court decision because now people are waking up. And I'm going to talk about it. And I may talk about it in Dallas. I may talk about it in Nashville. And I may talk about it in Tulsa. And I may talk about it in Cincinnati. I may talk about it in a lot of places. They say the Supreme Court says you got to bus, but just bus down south. Don't bus anyplace else. And Mr. Nixon said he was against busing. Well, every member he put on the Supreme Court of the United States voted for busing. He ought to talk to them about it before he appointed them to the Supreme Court. That's what he ought to have done. That's just some more hypocrisy that you National Republicans and National Democrats someday will wake up if you really feel like we do. But if you don't feel like we do, you're still going to be sleeping at the switch when the next election comes around. We're going to have... We shall support the legislation for exceptional children's care and betterment in this state. We shall support a farmers market program to build them all over Alabama as we bring about a fine highway program. I want to read you the committee report. And one reason I called the legislature, you cannot have any good more bond issues without any new money. That's what the committee said. But what did the committee in the Senate do when they tried to get it up for a vote? Even the chairman and 7 out of the 9 members of the committee wouldn't even bring their own recommendation up for a vote in that body. And I don't think that you approve of that in this House, and I don't believe the people of Alabama approve of it either. Now, my friends, there are those who say, I'll tell you why. There are those who say we want the bond issue voted on. I want the people of Alabama to know I don't mind you voting on the bond issue. You would have voted for the bond issue because you knew you would lose $500 million if you didn't. But my friends, let me tell you this. They wanted to submit you a bond issue with a 1-cent gas tax that taxed you. And you know who I think ought to pay for the new roads we build in Alabama? It ought to be the trucking industry that makes money off the roads and tears the roads up. That's who ought to pay for it. A $50 million bond issue, my friends, $43 million of it would be to match interstate. And if you have a $50 million bond issue, you're going to have interstate work in the next 4 years. And if you don't get a good bond issue, my friends, during this summer, you're going to have 1,800 highway employees that are going to have to be furloughed. So Mr. Pruitt estimates there are 20,000 people involved in highway work in this state that are going to be vitally affected. Yes, this is a most important piece of legislation. And I hope that you will remember that when we borrow money, we're not with 130 or 35 million. With inflation, that's a lot less than any other road program that we ever had. There's also been a suit filed against your governor that you can't read any Bible verses in school anymore. So if you say, honor thy father and mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, that'll be unconstitutional soon and unlawful. And that's been filed against your governor. Well, my friends, some of the reasons I have problems in public life is the fact that I ran for president in '68, and you know, the executive committee of Alabama could appoint the governor. Did you know that? The Democratic committee wouldn't have to have an election. They're going to appoint electors in '72. And you know why? Because in 1968...
I think, on the whole, the governor made an excellent speech. I agree with many things that he said. I think this legislature has accomplished a great deal. I voted in favor of the utility bills and most of the bills that the House passed. As would be expected, I disagree with him in terms of the freedom of choice bill. I don't think the solution to our school problems is to take the persons out, permit persons who are intimidated in our schools to transfer. I think the solution to the problem is to take whatever disciplinary action needs to be taken against the persons who are causing the trouble. I think that the bill, as I indicated on the floor on last evening, is really a smoke stream. It tends to show, to give hope to some persons who think that we can still have a segregated school system, and we just can't have it. The sooner we permit our school officials to take care of our school problems, I think the better it's going to be, and I think the time has come for us to quit playing politics with our children.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States. Be seated, please. Transportation Corps, Daniel Oaks Wenham, distinguished military graduate from New Brockton, Alabama.
It is a day in which self-centered individuals are anxious to undermine and destroy that which is good and that which is of essence. But by your devotion, and by your act today, you will be showing forth your willingness to lose your life in order that others may live, to lose your life in order that others may find their lives.
Going up to the Capitol to tell Lurleen we're moving in January the 1st. And we are scheduled to be there about 3 o'clock. If you finish your affairs here, why, we'd be glad to have you join us at the Capitol at 3 o'clock, or if there's anyone that's not participating officially that wants to be there, and just say hello to the outgoing and incoming governor, why, we'd be delighted to have you. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to cancel some of my campaign schedules for Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday because the Democrat Civil Rights Bill is still before the Congress, and I'm against it. And I have an amendment. I have an amendment to that bill that I've been working on for quite some time, and it will be presented to the Congress of the United States in a way in which we hope it can get passed by a member of the Judiciary Committee on our side. And I've been working by telephone today on the language of that amendment. So I'm going to stay in Congress until we not only have cast our vote in opposition to that bill, but to get that amendment passed. So you can see that from the Martin standpoint, we're a little on the busy side. But that doesn't mean that we're not going to be coming back with our sleeves rolled up and campaigning 100%. It just simply means that at a critical time in the nation, the Democrat Party is ramming through one of the worst bills that this country's ever seen. We need every vote in opposition that we can muster against it, and my number one obligation to the people of this state, as long as I'm in Congress, is in Washington, casting my vote, and I put that ahead of the opportunity to come home and campaign.
Is the GOP strong in South Carolina, sir?
Well, we'll find that out after the next election in November.
What do you feel about the...
I'm running for the first time on the Republican ticket. Congressman Watson was reelected on the Republican ticket last year. But I predict the Republican candidates are going to win South Carolina.
Senator Cleveland, what...
There are people that have been dedicated to work on the development of this great natural asset in Alabama since 1890. And much progress has been made in the past, as witness the great dams on the Coosa part of the river that's been built by private industry and all. But we are at long last going to develop the Alabama portion of the river at this moment by groundbreaking, initiating construction for the third and last dam that will make Montgomery a port city.
I'm told that there used to be travel on the river and transportation. What happened to it?
Yes, years ago there was transportation on the upper reaches of the river and again in the lower reaches of the river, but they couldn't pass the rapids, as they called them, at Wetumpka. Now, in the lower reaches of the river, we used to take cotton by the bales down to Port of Mobile to ship out to the world. But with the coming of the railroads, the delivery could be made faster by rail, and these old paddle wheel steamers, shallow draft steamers, went out of existence. Today, of course, we are talking about transportation on the river in the form of barges. When fully laden, draw about 9 feet of water. So that's the reason you have to have the dams today.
The last one, huh? How are you, Mayor? Nice to see you.
Glad to have you in Montgomery.
Thank you.
I
Very
want
happy
to
to be
present you
here.
this certificate, making you an honorary citizen.
Isn't that
of
great?
Red City.
Well, you're pretty safe. It's late in the day.
My daughter Ginger wants to present you with the key to the city.
Thank you, Ginger. That's very nice. You changed the locks this morning, I know.
Just this morning.
How are you, darling? Nice to see you. Isn't that nice to see you?
Well, I'm
Good.
so glad to be here.
Fine.
This afternoon's agenda calls for a visit to Governor Wallace's office. Can you tell me what is in store up there?
Well, you never know. I'm just going up and say hello, and I see the governor and maybe apologize for some of the things I've said on my show. Hi, man. Want to drive?
Well, you got a lot of fans over there.
This proposal just doesn't call for $399,000. It could lead to millions of dollars being spent by these irresponsible groups, a waste of the taxpayers' money, and to create discord and disrupt harmony that's been built up in these areas. It's disastrous for the city, the state, and the country. And it ought to be stopped, and our senators surely can stop it, and they need to get busy and do it.
Well, it starts Lauren Carter and Larry Blakeney, and backed up with Dwight Brissenden, the boy that was held out of competition last year. Carter is in the first string position. He ended the season there. And let's take both boys and talk about them a minute. They were just sophomores this time a year ago, and they both gone through a Southeastern Conference schedule and a season, and I've just see a tremendous amount of difference in the two boys as compared to this time a year ago, in the way of poise and confidence and just general know-how. So from the quarterback position alone, we would have to be better because our quarterbacks are going to be better.
Well, you have a mighty tough-looking schedule. In fact, I would venture to say you probably play the toughest schedule of anybody in this part of the country.
Well, I think we don't really complain about it a great deal because Auburn has played more or less the same teams for year after year. It just so happened that several years ago we were winning from all of those teams. We were winning from the Tennessees and the Georgias and the Floridas and Georgia Tech, and on occasion from Alabama. But it just so happens that our regular schedule or traditional schedule, the teams on it, have gotten extremely good. Some people say the pendulum has swung, or the cycle, whatever, any way you want to put it. And then on top of that, we have taken on a newcomer, Miami, and they are supposed to be, according to all reports, in the top 10 teams in the nation. So that gives you 6 bowl teams that win bowls last New Year's or before or after. And that's quite an assignment for a football team, regardless. You know, we felt about our schedule that if we had played some teams, some schedules that were played in the conference last year, we could conceivably have come out with a 7-3 season or a 6-4 season at the worst. But that's just part of it, and those are traditional teams that we are playing, and we intend to keep on playing them. And, of course, the schedules are made for a year in advance, and I know we will be playing them. So it's up to us to get better, to get back competitive, and we were. A couple of those tough teams that went to bowls last year, we might have won from. As it turns out, we didn't. But I don't know, I say not complaining, but just to elaborate a little more on schedule situation. You know, and I'm not critical of anyone when I say this, but Tennessee, for instance, doesn't play Georgia, nor do they play Florida. Georgia Tech doesn't play Alabama, and they don't play Florida. Georgia doesn't play Tennessee. They don't play Alabama. But we're caught right in the middle, Carl. We play them all. And I tell you that it's a real challenge to our football team and to Auburn. And I know that these boys are going to do everything possible to be real competitive against all of them.
Rioting was by a small group of students, and if you could have been there and seen the students themselves subdue the rioters. This was a small group of Dartmouth students, and that was a receptive audience, and the overwhelming majority of them acted in the traditions of Dartmouth, which have been free speech.
Running on a third-party ticket will help Johnson's chances in your re-election?
It's not going to help Johnson's or the Republicans either, because the people in our country are getting tired of the intellectual morons and the incompetents and who have brought about theories that both national parties have accepted. You see a movement on Dartmouth campus the other night that is reality. They are tired of intellectuals, morons, laying down all the guidelines, telling them that they can, what you must do with your children and do your businesses. And that's an issue in this country, that people are getting tired of having some preachers, I say some, and some professors, and some newspaper editors always telling them what they got to do with their lives and with their children and with their businesses and with their labor unions. And if you'd have been with me in New Hampshire and up that way, you'd have found that they think just like we do about that.
Governor, while you were gone, your wife's budget recommended no state funds for Tuskegee Institute this year. Could you explain that?
Now, Tuskegee's gotten a sizable state
portion annually from the state education allotment.
They got it. They got it during the last 4 years, but the superintendent of education recommended that we give that money to the 2 state colleges because Tuskegee is not a state college other than Quasi. It's a private institution, but the state hadn't given us money.
Well, after being in the legislature for just 2 months, it seems that everything that we have is of controversial nature. I have not had a chance to study the budget. It just made available to us today on the second date of our session. I am somewhat alarmed, however, at the reduction in the amount that appears to be in the budget for education for our state. This includes particularly higher education, as I just thumb at Auburn and the University of Alabama, a cut in the appropriation. This is shocking to me, and I hope that we're going to be able to do something about it. Let me mention this. We've made such progress under the former Governor Wallace in the field of education. The breakthrough to me is astounding, and I don't want to see it stopped. I want us to go forward, and I hope that we will find the funds, the appropriate funds, to not only bring us back up to where we were last year, but to increase rather than cut, as I find in the budget.
Senator, do you think that this across-the-board cut in higher education reflects what may be the administration's disenchantment with higher education in the state?
Oh, I don't think that, Charles. The administration has shown a terrific interest in education, and I'm sure that they still have that interest. It's a question of money. And as I have not had a chance to study the budget, I just looked at my junior college in Atlantic City and my universities in Auburn, and I'm just shocked and hurt that we don't have the money available, apparently. But we're going to have to look for it because we've made too great a progress to stop at this point.
Why do you think it leaves out Tuskegee Institute altogether and recommends nothing for the school?
Charles, I noticed, as you well know, Macon County is in my district, and I noticed just by looking that Tuskegee is not included. I trust that I'll be able to get that restored.
The center was constructed through funds provided by a 1965 legislative bond issue for schools with federal and university sources. Construction began in June of 1967 on the grounds formerly used as tennis courts next to Cliff Air Stadium. It's named in honor of the late Paul Shields Haley, who served for 51 years without compensation on the university's Board of Trustees. With its spacious classrooms, laboratories, and auditorium, the first 3 floors can accommodate a capacity of over 8,000 students at a single sitting. The tower section houses the offices of the School of Arts and Sciences and Education, the 2 largest schools at Auburn University. The roof deck of the 10th floor, to be known as the Eagle's Nest, affords a panoramic
And it's a rather confusing opinion. I have not discussed it with our attorneys who tried the case, but expect to today or tomorrow to get their opinion about whether an appeal should be taken on it. I was disappointed that the court would not view the film. It's so disgustingly filthy, unbelievably filthy, and some of you saw, I think, part of one of the films, that it seems that it would be entitled to no protection
above and beyond that which any other evidence, marijuana or LSD or drugs of that kind, enjoys. I think that the burden that this opinion puts on the state or on any enforcement officials in trying to make arrests for obscenity or to stop the showing of obscene films or the sale and distribution of pornographic literature is so great that it would be virtually impossible to enforce. The revenue measures adopted by the legislature did not come up to expectations. Now, you're talking about the measures in the special session? Yes, You're aware that amendments were adopted, for example, which reduced the insurance premium tax. Well, you're not talking about money in hand, you're talking about expected. Right, Right, these are the estimates. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to announce to you this morning an unbelievable surplus in the state's general fund. $16,658,683.33 as of the close of the books last night at midnight. Now, I have to say that this surplus is made possible by the dedicated efforts of our state employees, the cooperation of the department heads and constitutional officers of the state, and the efforts of the finance department under Bob Ingram and Tom Brazel. And I'd like to express my appreciation on behalf of the people of the state to all of them, because the business-like management of the state's affairs, from the highest echelons of state officials to the several thousands of state employees, have made this possible. And it represents, I think, a real tribute to their dedication, to their responsibilities as state officials and employees of our state. The surplus in the Special Educational Trust Fund is approximately $22.5 million. We had estimated in the special session some months ago in preparing the appropriation bill a surplus of some $18 million. But the revenue measures adopted by the legislature, as finally amended by the legislature, did not quite come up to the expectations or the estimates of revenue in the bills as introduced. So this additional surplus will help to avoid proration in the Special Educational Trust Fund as well. I'm sorry that the legislation to accomplish it did not get through, but I believe that the work of this commission can provide the format and background and experience for legislation to be adopted at the next session of the legislature, and that we'll get better legislation by reason of the experiences that you have and the work that you do and the deficiencies that might be revealed in the order through your efforts. I might add that any areas of deficiency that appear, this executive order can be amended and will be on your recommendation. So if anything like that should occur, let us know. Any discussion? And all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Well, Howard, you didn't even get on record. Well, I'm going to turn the meeting over to you then, Mr. Chairman, and retire.
Well, thank you.
Right now.
Thank you for the honor of being selected chairman, but I think you got the most ignorant chairman that I know of. I know very little and have not read this executive order. Some of you perhaps have and can give us information that may be helpful.
I think most of us have not read it.
Sure, you will not be on the 15th of January just in order to show that time is not privy to any confidential information by anybody who is close to me. I don't know where they got that, but they pulled it out of the thin air, as they pull many things out of the thin air about me and about Alabama. In the first place, we ought to wait and see what the facts are. That the matter being tried in the press in the country, in my judgment, is a disservice to the American war effort in Southeast Asia. And if any magazine, a news media wants to see any atrocities or pictures of atrocities, they can get them a lot cheaper than $125,000. I can recall that I visited with the mayor of Saigon various sections of that city, including the area destroyed by the Tet Offensive. And there I saw the graves of hundreds of children and hundreds and thousands of elderly citizens. I saw many young children, 3, 4, 5, and 6 years of age, who had lost arms, eyes, legs, who scarred on various parts of their body. I saw people living under tin shacks. I saw evidence of almost 1 million refugees that had been brought into Saigon as a result of the atrocities in the villages in South Vietnam. It is cruel. It brings out sometime man's inhumanity to man. But any atrocity committed any place in this war comes as a result of communist aggression. It is not the policy of the United States to commit atrocities, and therefore you cannot compare any alleged atrocity with the Nazi massacres in Germany. I haven't decided at this moment, and and of course that is the truth. But I can say that I'm dedicated to carrying on this movement that Alabamians started, and I don't want to see a combination of Republicans and Humphrey, Muskie Democrats and large newspapers in Alabama and moneyed interests and militant groups join together to destroy a movement of the average Alabama citizen. And that's exactly what's in the wind.
Both Mr. Richardson and Mr. Charles Conley, his attorney, were personally invited and encouraged by me to appear and to testify before the board. Neither appeared. Numerous attempts were made by the Community Relations and Internal Security Bureau of this department to obtain a statement from Mr. Richardson, all to no avail. Much of the testimony is conflicting, and there is insufficient evidence upon which to make a determination of charges against Officer Brown by Mr. Richardson. All the police officers of the Montgomery Police Department are cautioned that only necessary force may be lawfully used in effecting arrest, and that arrests are to be made with all courtesy if possible. At the same time,
next week on Friday at Auburn University, I shall have the pleasure of speaking to 78 out of the graduating class of just under 800 who will be receiving commissions in the armed forces of the United States. This is the expected, not the unexpected, and therefore it is not quite as newsworthy as some aberration of performance engaged in by some wild-eyed undergraduate who really doesn't know what he's doing. We hear that our young people are anti-establishment, that they are critical of our capitalistic system, would like to undermine the economy of our American way of life. Yet out of this just under 800 that will be graduating next week at my institution, over 400 have already accepted positions with business and industry at salaries which range from $5,000 to $12,000 a year starting. And they are far from being anti-capitalistic and anti-American.
by trade, and those of you that have suffered through one of my speeches know that I have a terrible propensity for running back through the pages of time and pointing out to you that any endeavor has certain ancient precedents. And last night I was preparing for this speech and thumbing through an area there and improve their skills, but found such an interest on the part of the public that soon our university, every other university, is not just teaching undergraduates. We're involved in a great deal of very esoteric scientific research. We're involved in some very immediate and intense technical assistance problems in the area. We're doing a lot of things. On the Bryant show, I had the halftime commercial this year. And I tried to use that opportunity to say to the people of the state, look, the University of Alabama really covers this state and really intends to cover this state with a great deal of services. And so we didn't rehash the games. Maybe that was a good thing this year. But we talked about what we were doing in Mobile and what we were doing in Moundville, Alabama, and what we were doing in Gadsden and what we were doing here in Montgomery. Because I felt that it was terribly important that the people of this state have a broad vision of what education was and what it could do. I thought that was the only possible antidote to the loss of perspective that I feared so much. In 1847, Democratic Society. Never before has there been so much to learn, unlearn, and relearn. Thank you very much. Yes, to our lovely lady, Mrs. Mingledon. Thank you very much. On recent occasions, Spiro has attacked